Okay, so today I'm going to be installing the Real Solutions sink front tray, 11-inch. So I got this from Home Depot. I'm going to go over the installation, and so I've already got the first one installed here. So I did custom fronts for my cabinets, and so here it is here. So in the package you have your sink front tray, your instructions, your hinges, and I just dropped your screws. And for those screws, the best drill bit size is a 1/3 over 30/2 of an inch. For the most part, I went according to the instructions, but right out of the gate, it wants you to mark an 1/8" back from the opening along the edge. And you use that, so you mark like a line, an 1/8 inch back, and that's what you use as your guide for setting your hinge. The other thing it wants you to do is, and that works, that's fine. But the other thing it wants you to do is put the hinge on the bottom of the opening. So I did that. I went according to the instructions and put the hinge on the bottom of the opening, got everything mounted. And then when I went to open it, the door, obviously with the hinge being at the bottom, was lower, and it was hitting this cabinet door here. So I went ahead and took the hinge, I put it to the top of the opening, and then I had to redo my holes so the door was the front was sitting correctly. And then the other thing I had to do is go in and lower my cabinet door, make adjustments, because your hinges, and I'll show you real quick. The hinges here, have the wide holes to allow you to adjust and raise and lower your door. So I had to make those adjustments there. And then obviously to make everything lined up, I had to do the same thing on this door, and this door. So that means there's a little bit of work. So it kind of opened up a can of worms and realigning all my doors and everything. So that was kind of a little surprise, and this first drawer front was quite a bit of work. So I went ahead and did that first step in putting that line an 1/8 of an inch back from the opening. So here's the left side hinge. You'll see the L right there. It's upside down. Same spot for the right side, and it's upside down as well. But you'll go ahead and set that on your line that you have an 1/8 of an inch back, and then mark 2 of the holes. So you can see along that side there, you've got a total of 3 holes. And so I did the top and the bottom hole, and went ahead and marked those holes, and then drilled pilot holes. So my 2 pilot holes drilled. Now you might see 3 there. That one was already there, but you only need 2. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the hinges on. I'll mount them like this. You'll have to pop them out to get to that bottom hole. And I need to mount them in there so that I can go ahead and put the front in place and go ahead and mark the holes for attaching the front to the hinges. Hinges mounted, and so your next step is to put your drawer front up on here, square it up, line it up correctly with the other drawers and your cabinet doors beneath. And then you'll open up your cabinet door underneath, access through the bottom, and grab a pencil and then mark the hinge holes onto the back of the drawer front. And so that'll give you a place to drill your pilot holes so that you can mount the hinges to the back of the drawer front. And by the way, you'll need just a second person to step in and hold that in place while you crawl under there and mark those holes. So as you can see, I got 5 holes marked here. Maybe not the best markings, just because I was at a bad angle. But you only have 2 screws for this. I went ahead and marked all 5 of them. Obviously, the ones that go side to side allow those adjustments, to go, again, side to side. And then this hole here, these 2 holes here, allow you to adjust up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and use these 2 holes because last time I found that I needed to adjust up and down more so than I need to go side to side. I'll go ahead and drill holes for all 5 of these, and that will allow me, if I need to go ahead and maybe I need to transition to these side to side holes, I can go ahead and do that. So as you can see, I got the pilot holes in place. Now, one thing I didn't do, as it talked about in step 2, was to make that line, trace that line along the top of the opening. And you use that for the placement of your sink front tray. And the reason why I didn't do that is because I actually just positioned it when I did this one here. I just positioned the tray in there and just kind of tested it out to see where I could put it. And so this kind of almost sits on the bottom of the opening. So I just do the same thing here. I measured this, so this is like 2.5 inches from the top. The other way that I'm going to vary this from the instructions is, as you can see where the holes are, I don't have them screwed in there. I use the handle screws for mounting it. And the reason for that is, multiple reasons. That that's already in place and I can do that. But also, if I use these screws, they won't go, they're obviously not longer than the thickness of the drawer front, but they are on the panel. So these screws would have to put a hole all the way through the center panel here. Just by using the handle screws to mount it, then I don't have to worry about trying to find shorter screws that would work for this. And I probably have. Important step when installing a sink front tray is, you're going from a blank front to one that's going to have a handle on it so you can pull it open. Grabbed another drawer front that has holes in the right spot, but the thing is it wasn't wide enough, so I had to measure it, center points on both, and line those 2 center points up. So now I'm going to drill through those 2 holes to make the hole in the right spot on the blank. So I'm going to use a drill press to do that. And the reason for that, you can see I got some clamps there to hold those 2 together. But the reason why I'm going to use a drill press is because, obviously I'm going to get a nice, precise, straight cut. With a handheld drill, you can kind of wobble in different directions. But you want those handles to be on there and sticking out perfectly perpendicular to your front. So the next step for me then, according to my own instructions, is mark the halfway point for this sink front tray, and then mark the center point for the drawer front. And then I'm just going to line those up, and I'm going to do 2.5 inches down. So once I get the sink front tray positioned the way I want it, I'll go ahead and just hold it in place and grab the drill. I'll get a drill bit that'll fit these holes here and drill through them again. And that'll put mounting holes through the sink front tray. So I got the sink front tray mounted, and I had a eureka moment. In doing so, I realized that, since I had such difficulty over here, and that was because I'm, it comes with Phillips head screws, and trying to get in there, maneuver, and get everything mounted and adjusted is very difficult. And I realized, there's a better way, so actually I went and I just got some hex head screws here, number 6, was on the hinges. It's like if you're trying to get in there with a screwdriver and you got the tray in your way, you're trying to make adjustments and make it lined up right with the other doors and drawer fronts. It's very difficult. Pretty much you can't do it. But by changing to a hex head, all I got to do is I can just throw a 1/4 inch socket on, and then I can just reach on in there and make adjustments. So now I got my new strategy in place with using hex head screws. I'm going to go ahead and get this mounted in place. to wrap this up. Okay, so I got the sink front tray off, went ahead and just slid the hinges in place, and then screwed the screws in into the 2 pilot holes on each side that I showed you earlier. So it's in place, and now that I've done that, I got to get the sink front tray in. Now, if I was to go to the original route and use these holes here with the slots, this would have been easy enough. You know, the screws have been in place. I could have just slid them on, slipped the screw through this larger hole, and then, you know, adjusted them. But I'm doing a handle, and I'm going to go ahead and mount them through the handle. Original handle screws, put them in place, and then try to get this Phillips head in there. It's just kind of hard to maneuver. It's real tight in there. So what I opted to do, though, is I went to Ace and found some same size bolt. I think these are like a size 8. You know, they got, you know, 6, 8, you know, on up. So these are number 8s, and this is 3/4 of an inch long, but they have an Allen head on there. So that's going to give me a lot of flexibility in just using an Allen wrench. So I got an Allen wrench right here, and I'll be able just to reach in here. I won't have to work with a screwdriver that'll, you know, hit the top here. I'll be able to use an Allen wrench. Just so you know, that's my compost in there, so it looks kind of unsightly. But so I use my Allen wrench here to tighten this up. And then that gives me the flexibility to go ahead and install that sink front tray in place, and, you know, I'll have maneuverability and everything. The other great thing about switching to an Allen wrench is that, or an Allen wrench bolt, is that we'll be able to remove this and clean this if need be. And is that you can't use the hex head over here when mounting onto the side of your cabinet opening, and won't have enough room to shut with the hex head, because the hex head is much bigger. So your hinges won't be able to shut. So you'll just have to stick with the Phillips head over here. But manufacturer probably could do better by maybe providing hex heads here. Just some much more maneuverability, and when you're trying to adjust your fronts to line up properly. And get the sink front tray in place with those Allen wrench bolts and the handle, and be all done with this. Done. Got the sink front tray attached to this one, the drawer front in place. So go ahead and open it up here. And so I just actually had to use those hex screws, because once that was in place and then I shut it, it was out of alignment, so I had to just adjust those, and I could move it and line it up. Good. If you're getting this particular product, consider if you're going to put a handle in, which would make sense. I mean, otherwise you're just going to be pulling it by the top, getting it all scuffed up. But if you put a handle in, consider getting you some Allen wrench bolts, and you can find those at your local home improvement store. Maneuverability to allow you to install that sink front tray in, and then easily remove it if you need to wash it out. The other thing, again, that a variation from the instructions is look for some hex screw heads. That way you'll have some maneuverability, so you can do some alignment. I actually just had to adjust those so that I can make the final alignment. So here's how it turned out. So everything's nicely aligned. I've had the opportunity to learn from my trials and errors on this. Good product. I would just say maybe, again, if you're doing a handle, you know, consider some of the variations that I recommended. For tuning in. God bless. Goodbye.